Incredible product. Check out this review on beef organs from Anna W. My sister told me about Heart and Soil supplements, and at first I was skeptical. I've been a competitive bodybuilder and recently stepped away. My body was so deprived, no period, dependency on caffeine, brittle hair and nails, inflammation in my entire body. Since taking beef organs from Heart and Soil supplements, my hair is the best it's ever been. I got my period back. I feel alive again. I notice a difference when I don't take them, and for that reason, I will be a customer for life. I'm so glad my sister told me about this company, Heart and Soil. Thank you for creating an incredible, high-quality product. This is why we do what we do at Heart and Soil. You can find us at heartandsoil.co. That's heartandsoil.co. And it's August right now. Animal Base 30, our free Animal Base challenge is going on now. Go to animalbase30.com to sign up. Tons of resources there. Join the community. Start an animal-based diet. Get your organs in. We can help you with that. Heartandsoil.co. Our mission is to help you reclaim your birthright to optimal, radical health. Heartandsoil.co. This week on the podcast, I have Danica Patrick. This was really fun to hang out with Danica. I went to Scottsdale and got to hang out with her. We drove a Corvette. She actually drove me around in a Corvette for a little bit and did a burnout with me in the car, which was wild. But we didn't talk about racing with Danica. We talked about her health journey, which has been substantial. Danica recently had breast implants out, and that improved a lot of her health issues. But I was excited to have Danica on the podcast because I know that many of you, both men and women, will identify with her health journey and can learn a lot from this. So it's awesome to see Danica, the most talented female driver, open wheel driver ever to race NASCAR or IndyCar, have her own insights and be so aware of her health and take charge of it and to be on this journey. And it was really fun to get to have this conversation with her. And as you'll see, we go all over the place. We talk about everything. We talk about romance, we talk about food, we talk about heavy metals in food, we talk about her breast implants, we talk about all kinds of things. It's a really cool one. Enjoy this podcast with Danica Patrick. Danica, pop quiz.
Okay.
What's healthier? Steak or kale?
Steak. You didn't even have to say or. Like, I know it's steak already. It's literally, well, no, organ meat's probably, in your mind, healthier than steak even?
Yes. Yeah, probably.
If you had to live off one ingredient, what would it be?
So I've had this conversation before, so I know this, but I had to think about it really hard. It would be cream. It would be raw cream.
Because it's delicious?
Because it's so good. It's so good. It's like my favorite thing. I know some people debate the evolutionary history, the historical use of dairy by humans, but there's plenty of tribes out there. The Maasai, there's tribes in Kenya that use milk. I mean, they have a cow, and they milk the cow, then they cut the vein, and they do blood and milk, and that's a lot of what a human needs. It's amazing what you can get out of milk and blood. I don't think milk is a complete food, but it's pretty freaking good. And if you add some maple syrup, which we're gonna do later, it is so good. It is so good.
It's really gonna kill my ketosis, but that's cool.
Are you in ketosis?
Well, yeah, I have so many fantastic resources of doctors, but yeah, I'm kind of working with Mindy Pelz.
I do know Mindy Pelz.
Yeah, and she's really big into fasting, but I actually came across her from detoxing because of having heavy metal toxicity. And so I was very curious about it, and she just had the best information for detoxing and the pathway to it, and it's not just like, oh, just chelate and you're done. It's like, there's a whole method to it and a process. And then it just kind of led into other things and just kind of like, I'm fascinated with you. So I was like, hey, you want to do an interview? And then I'm like, hey, Mindy, I'm fascinated. You want to do an interview? So the podcast is truly like the ultimate connector. It's the best.
It's the best.
I love doing it.
It's the best way. Doing my podcast has been the best way to meet people. And here I am with Danica Patrick, you know? Okay, so a lot of people know you from doing things, going fast and driving cars with wheels.
Yeah.
As opposed to cars without wheels. But I'm excited to share your health journey on the podcast. And so we've already kind of hinted at it a little bit. You mentioned heavy metal toxicity, ketosis, but let's just tell the listeners and the watchers the story of your health journey, because it's really important, I think, to get this message out there and start the story wherever you think it starts, and we'll go from there.
Totally. I appreciate that. And I think in sort of especially the more vulnerable stuff I've shared this year, it's like, it really resonates with people. And when you share the experience, it's like for me, I loved hearing experiences is what helped me understand more of what was going on. But I mean, background, I've always been interested in the body and how it works, and I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. Even my sister's a physical therapist. Like, we both like love biology and the body and just understanding everything about it and how to feel your best, look your best, perform your best. And then being an athlete, you get even more tuned into that kind of stuff, which now I look back at my career and I think, man, my hydration methods were terrible. My rehydration was terrible. Like, there was so many things that I'm like, I was so not optimized. I even did some cold laser therapy, brain, vagus nerve, gut, like all that, and like helped with gaze stabilization, which I didn't have any of that when I was racing. So all those concussions and like my eyes would jiggle all the time, and just the amount of drain on the system that I was having because I didn't have even had good gaze stabilization from all the concussions. I look back now and I think I should just go back to racing and just start over and like
you heard it here.
All the championships.
Here she goes.
Oh no, but I would say really the significant part of my health journey that is probably the most helpful to people, because I wrote a book called Pretty Intense. I had workouts. I wrote a 12-week workout program. I wrote recipes and talked about mindfulness. And so I've always been really curious, but it wasn't until, it really wasn't until the end of 2020. I really things kind of went over the edge, and I had gained some weight at the end of 2020, and I was like, that's out of nowhere. And then the beginning of 2021 came, and then my cycle was getting delayed, and then skipped. And then I thought, that's bad. And that was what ended up really getting me into the doctor, was that I was like, okay, I know this is a bad sign this is just a bad sign. It just should be regular. And so I had blood work done, and the first thing that came through was my thyroid was low. And I'm like, that's it. So easy. Okay, or not so easy, but I thought this will be the solution. Just take a pill, and now I'm going to have everything, my hair will grow back longer again, like my weight will drop, like everything's going to be working again. And that was truly the tip of the iceberg of like the journey. And so after that, we couldn't get my numbers to come up over like 3 different dosages. And so he said, this is just my OB. And he was like, you need to see a functional doctor. So then I saw a functional doctor. And as I'm thinking about now more and more, I'm like, okay, I can track this back to 2018 probably. Remember 2018, again, kind of like, my hair wasn't as healthy. I was kind of just like, I'm just getting older. I don't have the same like kid hair anymore, and gained a little bit of weight at that point in time. Like I weighed like 108, 110 pounds forever. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, I'm like 114. Like, what is this all about? And then, so that's where I can really mark it as being like, that was the noticeable difference in my life, was 2018. And I just and in my intuition, I was really stressed for people to trust their intuition, because my intuition said maybe my hormones are off. And then I did what I do to anyone else. So of course I did it to myself. I'm like, try harder, work out more, eat less, all the things that just made it worse, right? Like just made it worse. And so then that was the next couple of years. Then I think it really probably tipped over the edge. So here's the big punchline. I got breast implants when I was 32. So I had them for 7.5 years. So the breast implants really were getting those removed. I know was removing like a big culprit of my body not being able to be efficient and get any kind of homeostasis. It was just always in a state of inflammation, always in a state of fighting. And so breast implants, then I worked out all the time. I work out 2 times a day, And so I worked out way too much, a stressful job. And then a stressful job, driving 240 miles an hour.
A stressful job.
And then heartbreak. And so like that was sort of the series of events that ended up, I think, just taking my body and just just everything bottomed out was what ended up happening. Like all my hormone levels just got very suppressed. CRP was elevated, from an inflammatory marker was elevated. So thyroid, vitamin D, magnesium, DHEA, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, all of them were low. Still kind of are, but we're working on it. And thyroid and everything. So that was kind of, so basically, yeah, in 2020 was kind of where it really shifted. Then I finally started seeing the doctor in 2021, and that led to a functional doctor. And then from the functional doctor, it moved on to a different doctor that does some functional medicine, but as well as like peptides and things like that. So I also had leaky gut and dysbiosis. So I did a whole bunch of tests. So I did a 90-day protocol for leaky gut. We did some things to try and fix dysbiosis. Dysbiosis only got worse. It was like a level 7 out of 10, went to 10 out of 10 by the by fall, because I also was training for the Boston Marathon. So that was really not very good for me either. And I was training in 106-degree weather in Arizona in the summer because we ran it in October because of COVID. It was supposed to be run at the beginning of the year. So that was another thing that was bad. And then I also tried chelation, which is where you try and get rid of heavy metals. So you take a certain drug that kind of pulls all of the metals and minerals out of your body and gets rid of them. I was trying to do sauna to detox even more on top of that in the summer. So then I developed perioral dermatitis, which is just all over my face. And I was taking a steroid that I didn't know the steroid was bad, but you're not supposed to take a steroid for that. So that lasted 6 months. So then I had to finally end up going on a 30-day antibiotic for that. But yeah, then finally in April of 2022, I had my implants removed, and like within that night after I had them removed, my face started producing its own natural oils again, because my face was, I didn't know it was dry, but obviously it was. My scalp had been dry for like 2 years, and nothing I did would fix that. So my face started producing oil again, which was like amazing. I woke up in the morning and I just had more energy. I always do everything I need to do, and I'm never too tired really. But I got up and I had all the natural energy. Like, you know how you feel when you just kind of are in your stride and you're like ready to go and you're almost antsy in a way, like, let's just do something, you know? I didn't feel like that for years. I kind of felt like this labored energy where I'd be like, okay, get up, Danica, go work out. You got to go do this, clean your room. And so I had this natural energy within 12 hours of surgery. I just felt amazing right away. I was peeing 25 times a day because I was getting rid of inflammation. So anyway, it was like already so much relief right away. I've learned that it comes in waves now. Healing comes in waves with detoxing, because it's not like you get them removed and then all of a sudden all the problems are gone. But at least now I've taken out a large culprit, and the things that I do are working. Like, actually 13 days after surgery was over with, I did labs and my thyroid numbers came up just within range for the first time. And I'm like, okay, at least it's doing something. So things started improving. Again, healing is not linear and it goes in waves, but it's definitely working now. So I've got some cleanup work to do, but it's like far better. Far better.
Along the way, did any of the doctors, your OB, anybody you saw say, have you thought about breast implant illness?
I brought it up. To every one of them, and I thought, well, could this be it? And they're all like, no, probably not. They're like, I mean, maybe, but let's try these other things first.
Right.
And I can't blame them for saying, let's try these other things, because the alternative is surgery.
Right.
But none of them brought it up, and none of them believed that was the case.
And what year did you get the implants in?
I got them in I got them November of 2014.
Okay. And you said you first noticed stuff around 2018, like the weight gain.
Yeah, so it probably took like 3 years, three and a half years.
So the beginning part, maybe not a lot of negative side effects.
Didn't notice much. Yeah, it felt fine, recovered fine, like didn't really notice much.
And these were silicone implants.
Yep.
Because I think you and I talked about this on your podcast, or after it, like silicone, saline do different things in women apparently. You've seen this in your research about breast implant illness now.
So there's more silicone in silicone implants, but there's still a silicone capsule or a silicone bag, essentially,
Right.
that the saline's in. So you're still exposed to the silicone. One of the things that's really common for women to get that have saline is mold.
Yes.
Because they inject them to fill them up. And so when they take the saline out, there's a lot of times it's very cloudy and little things going on inside of the implant. So saline is a little bit higher, it seems like, for mold issues.
Yeah, I talked about this on a previous podcast with my friend Evan Brand, who alerted me to that. And he sent me photos of women's implants that had been removed and had visible mold on the outside of the implant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it seems like in your case, there was a real autoimmune syndrome going on with these silicone implants.
Yeah.
That didn't begin to manifest for 3 years or so.
Yeah. It. I have additional information now. Have you ever heard of the DNA company?
No.
There's a guy named Kashif Khan. He has a company called the DNA Company, and he was sent to me by Dave Asprey. Dave and him were working together on things because he does DNA analysis. And so Kashif was doing work with doctors on breast implant illness and what could be the cause of it from a genetic perspective. And so he passed me along to Kashif. I did the DNA test. I actually, funny enough, just this morning got the final results.
Okay.
I got some of them last week, but there was a couple things that were missing. And so I'm not going to be able to do verbatim a great job of explaining this. But here's the sum of it, basically, is that there are certain pathways within the body that are going to make breast implants a problem because it's a foreign object and your body's going to attack it. So I do a really good job. Well, first off, there's three things. One, my vessel lining is the poorest vessel lining that there is. So what lines all of my veins is not quality at all.
Okay. So
that is easy to inflame, and that's a problem in and of itself. Then the other thing is that I am really good at detoxing through the gut and environment, things that come in, to the point that I actually have an autoimmune response to it. My body's in overdrive, getting rid of things, and creates an autoimmune response. And the third thing is that when my cells oxidate and clean, flush, the oxidation, I don't clear the oxidation. So when I work out really hard and breathe really heavy and create that oxidative stress in the body, my body doesn't clear it. So now I just have this build-up process of happening within my body that is making everything, I'm just getting sicker. So my body's not able to recover. It's not able to, it's not operating properly. So for those few reasons, he said was probably why I did poorly with it. Now I also have some genetic markers that he just explained them. They're it's serotonin was what he was telling me about, and neuroepinephrine. And I have the best possible serotonin and neuroepinephrine numbers and markers. They come into balance really easily. I don't create trauma with stimulus.
Okay.
So I don't have emotional responses and mark it, but I remember. So I actually learn from it, but I don't have an emotional trauma response. And then serotonin, I don't get up or down too easy. So I stay really calm and balanced. And so I don't notice when I don't feel bad. And I also have certain, I think it's maybe BDNF is maybe the genetic pathway. But when I like something, I get really into it. And I have all the energy in the world for the things I'm passionate about. And since I'm retired, I can do whatever the hell I want. So I only do things that I like doing. So I stay very energized through the things that I'm doing. And he said that there was someone else that he works with that is like an extreme marathoner or triathlete. And she was doing this run where other people were dying. And the ambulance got to her at one point, and as soon as she could stand up, she just started running again. And she has similar pathways to me. So he's like, you don't know if you don't feel good. You're able to push through at any cost. So now he's like, you probably would feel, two people with the same exact issue, you versus someone else with different pathways, and you feel fine, but this person might not be able to get out of bed. So I kept pushing. So how long did I feel bad? How long was my body not working right? Probably the whole time. But like the body's amazing. And it's amazing. Like you think about the garbage that a lot of people eat. I mean, even the people that eat healthy, you're probably thinking like, if somebody's crushing vegetables, they're doing better than almost everyone in the world, right? But you're like, it's still garbage.
Yes.
And so imagine now that like there's people that never eat well in their whole entire life and they live till they're 90. It's like the body is amazing actually. And so, but I push it really hard and I expect a lot of it. And so, I don't think that most of people would go to the doctor for what I went to the doctor for, because I didn't feel too bad. But I really want to feel good. I really want to look good. I want to feel good and I want to operate well and I want to live really well for a long time.
Well, I think as a high-performance athlete, you're tuned into those things too.
Yeah.
I think about those things, and those were a lot of the same things that motivated me to go to medical school. A lot of my medical training was based on this desire to optimize my performance. And I was never a professional athlete like you were, but I wanted to run fast or look good or have energy or mental clarity. And so I wanted to optimize those things too. So I was born out of that I was focused and went down the medical path. But you're describing the neurochemistry in your brain, and I'm thinking, that's a really optimal neurochemistry for somebody that's driving race cars at 240 miles an hour.
That's what he said too. He's like, you had a good job for how your body works.
Or you were the right person to do that. You know, somebody with those genetics and that brain chemistry was pretty ideally suited to have the performances that you did. Yeah. Do you miss it? Do you miss racing?
No, I don't. I really don't. I mean, every now and again, I think it'd be fun to just kind of like push it, go on a track and just push it and like get it going, like find the edge a little bit. What I realized when I retired was that I really love getting uncomfortable. I thought I hated it. I actually thought that was my least favorite part about it because I'm quite a methodical learner. And like there'd be other drivers that just go flat through turn one on first lap, and I'd be like, not yet. So I didn't have that in me. I'm very methodical. And so I thought maybe I'm scared of that edge, But it turns out after I retired, I needed to find things that would continue to challenge me and get me out of my comfort zone. And so it's actually something I loved. So it truly was like the right sport for me.
So what are you using now to find that edge?
I mean, I don't have as much sharp edges as I used to, but I mean, the podcast is a total learning experience. And, when I talk to somebody like doctors and, very smart people like yourself and very experienced in things, I want to keep up and I want it to be a great interview. And so sometimes I'm like, holy shit, am I ready for this? Like, or like someone like a Jordan Peterson, am I ready for this? And so I enjoy the deep dive and like the really like getting immersed in it and just mentally soaked in the information so that I can do a good interview. So, it's a much smaller one, but then I've done other things like go on Bear Grylls and jump out of helicopters and pull myself across canyons. And so there's that.
How was that?
That was great. I mean,
Bear's a friend of both of ours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, he's a really good guy.
Yeah.
He's like a really good guy.
Bear's great.
I mean,
he's not taken me on those adventures yet, but hopefully next time in Costa Rica, I'll get him.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'll get some adventures. I've eaten testicle with him though.
Yep, that's one up. We only ate scorpion together, so.
But that's pretty good.
So, but it was so great, and I loved getting out of my comfort zone. I did not want to skydive, and you don't know what you're going to do, and you really don't. But I secretly hoped I was going to, because I was scared to.
But you've bungee jumped before, right?
I have, but I have a cord. And so and I'm also scared to do that too. I was frightened. The first time I bungee jumped in New Zealand, I drove by and I'm like, oh, cool, never doing that, but let's check it out. And then the next day I was at a wine tasting and the lady that was running it, she said, oh, that was my first job. That's the original bungee jump there ever was. And she's like, oh yeah, I know all of them. She's like, do you want to go do it? And I was like, why am I wearing a dress, but I brought a jeans and a t-shirt? Why did I do that? And so I changed, I walked over there. They're like, all right, you're ready, you're good in 20 minutes. And I was like, holy shit. And so then I did it. And I did it one more time too, because I like to face the fear. So yeah, so it's definitely in me to get uncomfortable. So, and I mean, even my health stuff can make me uncomfortable. I mean, I'm constantly pushing it. I mean, shoot, just having to do as much needles as I've done. I mean, I did a loading dose of NAD, which is 5 out of 10 days. You do 750, I don't know the measurement, milligrams,
Probably,
maybe,
yeah.
milliliter, whatever. And I sat on this couch right here and had someone come and sat with a very uncomfortable, first off, the needle was horrible, right? It's not as bad as you think it's going to be, but the needle's like totally not comfortable for me. And then you feel awful for a couple of hours. Have you done NAD?
No, I haven't, but I've heard this many times.
It makes you feel sick.
Yes.
And the worse you are, the more sick you feel. So like I needed Zofran every time.
To not puke.
Yeah. To not feel like the one time I didn't take it just to try it, because I'm like, I don't really want to take it. I felt sick all night. And then I didn't take Zofran the 6th time. So you're supposed to keep it up like once a month after that. And I didn't take it and I felt okay. But like, man, those first 4 times were brutal. I passed out actually.
What?
Yeah. The 4th time, we did a vitamin push first, and it backed the line up and into the little drip sort of filter that shows how fast it's dripping. And so when the NAD got pushed into the bag, then it was like, okay, is it going or not? And it was wide open. So like, just because she was draining down a little bit of the fluid, it was wide open. Then she had walked over to the counter and I was like, how are we going to know how fast it's going? She's like, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden I went, oh God. And it hits your head and then whoosh down your body. And I passed right out.
Oh my God.
It's super, super intense.
NAD is actually a cellular danger signal in the body. So when you put it IV, your whole body thinks that something is very badly wrong. Cells use nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, NAD, to communicate danger. So it has this response in your brain and all of your nervous system that sort of says, freak shit out. Yeah.
So what is it supposed to do then?
Well, NAD is one of these reducing agents. It's one of the things that gets reduced. It's a carrier and a donor of electrons in the human body, and it's needed for a lot of reactions in the biochemistry. But in people who get sick and inflamed and insulin resistant, and I don't know if part of your inflammation led to some degree of insulin resistance,
Sure.
then NAD gets to be low, and that leads to problems with DNA repair and all sorts of enzymes that need NAD to work. So all of human biochemistry, glucose metabolism needs NAD. All of these, it's all movement of electrons. So for a lot of people that have issues, giving them back some NAD helps because their body isn't in a place where they can regenerate it well enough. Now, one of the things I've come across on my podcast was the idea that I think when people are healthy, they don't really need to supplement NAD. There's a lot of these kind of longevity supplements out there right now for NAD, and the problem with these is that they can imbalance methylation, because when you put excess niacin derivatives in the human body, so niacin it's a nicotinamide, nicotinic acid is a derivative of NAD. So by giving your body NAD, you're giving your body extra niacin derivatives. When you give your body extra niacin, it uses methyl groups. It uses methyl groups to get rid of the extra niacin to make something called sarcosine. So you can change your methylation properly. So some people, when they take extra NAD, get anxious. So you got to be real careful. And I spoke about this a while ago when I had David Sinclair on my podcast. He was saying, oh yeah, I take, betaine, which is trimethylglycine. So you got to really, it's an intense treatment for people who are very sick, which is why they were using it for you. But the hope is that eventually you can get back to a place where you don't need that kind of thing. Although I do have friends, I have a good friend, Anthony Gustin, who's spoken openly about the fact that NAD was really helpful for him detoxing mold. So it's just part of this process.
Maybe it'll be different when I feel it, when like my body is operating different. I wonder. Another thing that I tried, Craig Conover's his name. Have you ever heard Craig?
Yeah.
So he's another doctor I use. I was just talking to him today about some labs that came in, and I did peptides. So that was another thing I tried. And peptides got to the point for me where it was itching and becoming inflamed. And
the
ironically,
site?
And so ironically, I was out to dinner with Serena Poon and David Sinclair, and I was telling him about that, and he's like, "Stop! You have to stop taking peptides right now." And so I was like, "Oh, that was good timing for that dinner," because I was like, and I was ready to go on my birthday trip, which was a yacht trip with 9 other girls, and now girls don't care what you look like, but I was like, I don't really want to have welts on my ass on the boat with a swimsuit. So anyway, so I stopped, and I haven't taken peptides since, but I wonder if my body will react different to peptides at some point in time.
It's again, NAD.
What do you think about peptides?
NAD, peptides, I think that they're valuable for people who are super sick, but again, So the way that I think about all of this is like, what is the root cause? You know, there's a lot of therapies within mainstream Western medicine that are pharmaceutical. And then there's a whole branch of like an add-on to Western medicine, which is functional medicine, where we also use adjunctive therapies that don't always address the root cause. You know, you get an NID IV, it can be helpful in the short term for you, or like it is for my friend Anthony. People can have issues that peptides can help with. Some people take BPC 157, which, you know, or they take it orally.
CJC.
And those can help kind of kickstart, but do they correct the root cause? No, right? You don't have a peptide deficiency, presumably, in your body. So it's like, the way I think about it is a little bit more elementary than I think. I'm just thinking like, distill it.
Yeah.
And for you, when I heard your story, I thought, wow, I mean, getting the breast implants out for you, that strikes me as like, that was clearly a big trigger for you.
Totally. And on top of that, the implants were so capsular contracture is where because for those who don't know, you get them and your body forms scar tissue around the implant, because it does that with everything, whether you get hip or you name it. Like any implant in the body has scar tissue that forms around it, correct?
Yeah.
So it forms scar tissue around it. It's called the capsule. And so the capsule was all fine. And that was another thing that happened in 2018, to tie the timeline back again, was that 2018 came and I was like, oh, wow, this one's kind of hard. This one's not. And I was like, that's weird. So I actually went and had an MRI to make sure that it wasn't ruptured from driving 240 miles an hour and hitting walls. So I was like, maybe it's ruptured, you know? It's a valid thought. And so I went and had it done and spent like $1,000 for them to check it. And they were like, it's fine. And so nothing was wrong with it. And so I was like, okay. And so part of me was like, do I get a new one? Do I get them out? Do I get them both done? Like, how do I do this? Like at that point in time, it wasn't really in my head that they were dangerous. I thought I kind of crashed or something. And maybe I thought it wasn't ruptured, but I thought basically, because what they tell you is that when there's a big impact and it creates a tear in the capsule, that it bleeds, and when it bleeds, then it forms more scar tissue. So I thought maybe I hit the wall too many times, it tore too many times, and that's why that one's like that. And then all of a sudden, two years later, I'm just kind of like, oh, the other one did the same thing, and I wasn't racing anymore. So I was like, that's weird. So my body was continuously forming scar tissue to the point where there's 4 levels of grading for capsular contracture, and mine was a 3 out of 4. So, and they were both the implants when they came out, they were super tight, and the implant was folded within the capsule because it was squeezing so tight. Because
of the contracture?
Yep, exactly.
Wow.
It squeezed so tight that the implants on both of them had a fold in them.
Wow.
So they weren't even they weren't the right shape anymore even. So it's just another indicator how much the body is like, this isn't working for me.
Not working.
Yeah, so.
You also had heavy metal toxicity.
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from?
So this is a good conversation to have, because definitely there are a lot of heavy metals in implants. So
interesting.
And so I'm sure that some of it came from that.
Why are there heavy metals in implants? That's so
great question.
I mean,
how's silicone made though? It's it's just all synthetic stuff that I don't know. I mean, if you look at any social account or website to show the ingredients, it's a laundry list of different metals and various other things.
I guess they're not just.
Heavy metal toxicity is very common. Very common with implants. But on top of that, because I can't quite identify it, we've got this little subset idea of like, oh, I race cars. That's kind of a metally environment. What could have come from that?
Yeah.
But mercury was what was highest for me. So I was high in 5 different metals. If I remember them, cesium, thallium, probably from kale.
Could have been.
Thallium, because they told me thallium has been on the rise. My first functional doctor, she said thallium levels are up in so many different people because kale pulls it from the soil. So if you eat kale, like think about it. If you get breast implants, you probably want to look good. You probably want to look good, so you eat kale and thallium toxicity. So cesium, I don't know what that comes from. Thallium, I know one of the big culprits can be kale. I had lead. Lead can be very hereditary. So I know my mom has not had her metals tested, but it could be hereditary. That's where it comes from a lot of times. And then I can't remember the other one.
Mercury.
Well, mercury is
Arsenic?
the highest. I don't know. I did not have arsenic, I don't think. I got to remember. I'd have to look back to see the 5. But mercury was the highest. So above a 5 is like you're in the category that you're in the danger zone.
Right.
Mine was 170. It was astronomical. So the first thing I thought was, oh, Mark Hyman. Mark Hyman got into functional medicine because he had heavy metal toxicity. So I was like, hi, we did that interview and I have this level and whatever. And so he said, just quit eating seafood for 6 months. You'll be fine. I was like, okay. So that's what I did. But on top of that, now as a little bit of like a twist, is that I was also trying to heal my gut, and I could only have like scallops, cod, halibut. I think that was about it that was on the clear list.
Yeah.
Like a medium was like turkey and chicken. So I ate a lot more chicken back in those days. But like, so now I'm like, fish is the only thing that my gut's supposed to be. So I'm like can I swear? I'm a mess. I'm a fucking mess. Like I'm a fucking mess. And so I'm like, I'm just like so much stress. Like, what do I eat? I tried, and I do things too as well as I can possibly do them. So anyway, I say that, but also, you're going to just be like, that was it, Danica. I felt really bad for the poor animals for a while. Okay. This was probably around that 2018 time. Oh gosh, what was that one doc that came out? I watched at the end of 17 and it made me go, oh shoot. What was the one documentary? It came out at the end of 17. It was showing like how athletes were getting like erectile dysfunction from
Game Changers.
Game Changers.
Oh,
and I was like, oh shit. I was like, now it's like really rocking my meat eating world. And I knew intuitively my body loved high fat meat. Like I loved having like short rib, like steak, like all the fatty, like I knew it. Like my body's like, thank you. And so, but I felt bad. And then I put myself through the paces of watching on social media slaughter stuff happening.
Okay.
So then I started eating just egg.
Just egg?
Uh-huh. And then I started eating a lot more protein powder, plant protein powder.
Plant-based protein powders, which are definitely contaminated with heavy metals.
Fun.
We know that.
Oh, fun. I'll just throw those away in the damn.
You told me the other day you had a plant protein.
We'll go assess my kitchen.
You want me to?
This.
We'll do it.
You already want to throw my spinach and arugula away. I'm like, these are the last 2 vegetables. Come on.
Absolutely. We'll talk about it.
Oh, I know. So I was totally not having as much, and then I'm adding in some beans. I'm trying like tofu, and like and I know there's tons of soy in tofu with estrogens, and it's a hormone disruptor. I mean, beans don't agree with me, and I'm like, maybe I just gotta do it for longer. I'll try anything.
It's there.
And so I was trying so hard, and so I would basically not have any animal protein and eggs. I've always known eggs on all my blood tests for food sensitivities. Eggs have always been through the roof on sensitivity for me.
Just the whites or the yolks and the whites? Both. Interesting.
Both.
Okay.
Whites the most, but it's extremely high. Like whenever anything's high, it's extremely high. Uh-huh. And so now eggs are out too, and it's hard. Like I don't know what the hell to eat. And so I would just have a little bit of fish at night. And I would have salmon or sea bass or halibut or something, and swordfish. And I didn't love tuna, but swordfish definitely has a lot of mercury. And so that was happening from like 18, 19, 20 kind of time. I didn't have very much other than fish for those years. So I think between the implants, possibly my environment for some of the metals, and then the fish only, pretty much, I totally was down the dumps with my heavy metals.
Oh, man. I'm glad that you talked to Mark. I really appreciate all the work he's done. And we said this on your podcast. It's just, we have to be honest with the fact that like Mark recommends a pegan diet. So like,
I know
he recommends this pesco vegetarian diet to people. And I don't know how humans eat. I don't know how humans can be healthy. It's just tragic because I like fish too. I mean, I used to love sushi. I didn't realize that most sushi was farm raised. I love scallops. I love lobster. I love really good king salmon. And I don't eat fish anymore. I've talked about this on my social media because of all sorts of contaminants now, heavy metals, even in the lowest mercury fish like salmon. I saw it in my clients when I was working with them, that mercury would go up. And then if you're eating sea bass and halibut or snapper or swordfish.
I caught a 51-pound halibut. I'm sure there's a lot in there. The bigger the fish, the more mercury.
Halibut is really high in mercury, and it's delicious. But I think people like fish because they think the omega-3s are so good for them. And I think there's plenty of ways for humans to get omega-3 without eating fish. You can get it from butter, you can get it from animal fat, like the actual fat in steaks has omega-3, you can get it from egg yolks if you're not sensitive. And then I think a lot of women end up eating fish because they think it's gonna help them be skinny or something.
Yes.
That, like,
well,
women
the
have
first
this
thing
fear.
like I said, I was like working out more, eating less, and the quickest way to eat less or less calories is essentially what you're trying to accomplish. The quickest way to cut calories down is to take fat out, because there's 9 calories per gram versus carbohydrates and protein are 4.
Yeah.
So and skip the peanut butter or nut butter on something. You go for chicken instead of steak. Like there's a bunch of those kinds of decisions that are made to cut calories down, and all that happened is I kept feeling worse. Like I truly did. I knew it. And I was fully like, I feel better on fat. But like, if I'm trying to reduce calories and then I'm dealing with all these other things, like I'm gaining weight and things. And then so I'm just like, I just didn't have enough information yet.
It's tough to put it all together. That's what's so hard. And that's, I think, why physicians need to be trained differently. Like, one of the reasons I'm here in Arizona is to go down to Tucson to go to the medical school that I went to and try and have some conversations with physicians and medical students there about what they're learning and how we change the medical system. But doctors are not trained to integrate these things. As doctors, we're trained to have blinders on. We're trained to be myopic and think heart, liver, pancreas. I'm an endocrinologist. I think about thyroid or, your pancreas. Or I'm a cardiologist. I just think about a heart. I'm a gastroenterologist. I just think about your gut. I don't think about your thyroid. But we're just training physicians wrong. And to be able to see how it all connects is tough.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the cod and the food sensitivity, I just wanted to add this. It's so interesting. Basically what I've seen, and this is just my 2 cents, is that when people have bad leaky gut, everything comes back positive. You get everything is positive. You're reactive to everything because in some ways your gut is a sieve, right? So everything's going to get across. In my mind, it doesn't mean that someone that has lighting up food allergies with leaky gut can't eat red meat. It's like you need nourishment.
Yeah.
And everything's going to light you up right now. You need to figure out the cause of the leaky gut, which in your case, we could postulate, autoimmune type things, breast implants, other things perhaps. But
marathon.
Yeah, marathon training. You said heartbreak, crashing, stressful job, heavy metals, probably exposure from racing, which is going to have brake dust and a bunch of metal. Like this is probably a tricky thing. Part of the job dangers, that comes with the territory.
I thought it was crashing and it turned out I was just breathing.
Yeah, it's tricky. So it's a tough thing for people, I think, though, to manage that. And they're like, well, I can only have these 3 things. And it's, well, they get limited. In your case, it was sort of a rock and a hard place. And then you're eating a bunch of fish, but you have more metals, and the fish are probably just giving you more metals. So
leaky gut's a tricky thing. I'm glad you said that because when it was explained to me, God, who was it? Might have been Ben Greenfield. I can't remember exactly who it was that explained it, but it was just that not everything that you eat is really actually inflammatory. It's just that since there's so much through lectins or certain disruptors that wreck the gut lining, that things are just seeping through. They're getting through the lining, and so your body is not processing them normal. Excuse me. It's getting into the bloodstream. So you're getting particles, like a big chunk of kale or salmon or something else, and it's just a big particle, and the body doesn't know what to do with the big particle. So it's not that it's actually the chicken or the steak or the carrot, because it's like cooked or raw, like they rate them. Like it's just that it's all passing through and abnormally in the bloodstream, right? Something like that.
Yes, exactly.
So not to be scared of those foods that ranked high on a food sensitivity test, really should just be checking to see, like, what's the final check? Like, how do I know that the job is done?
Well, I think you can go back and do the food sensitivity testing. Leaky gut is so hard, right? Because we don't have a good metric to tell you about leaky gut. I heard you talk about this. So you did a podcast in May of this year on your podcast, Pretty Intense, where you talked about your breast implant illness journey.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of fun that we could do this now so we can check in, a few months later. It's now the beginning of August, how things have gone. But in that one, you mentioned you'd had a couple of leaky gut tests.
Yeah.
Do you know how the leaky gut was tested for? Was it zonulin? Was it a PEG 300 test?
Oh, the test?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously it was blood. And then it was Cyrex.
Okay, so they have
like a Cyrex 10.
Yeah.
There was like a bunch of different panels.
It's just such
a 3 and a 4 and a 10.
Yeah, they have these panels. I don't know off the top of my head what's in the different Cyrex panels, because blood levels of zonulin are not a good indicator of leaky gut, because all sorts of tissues in the body can make zonulin. And you can look at stool zonulin on something like a GI map. But
I just got a stool result today.
Yeah, we could look at it.
Look at that. Who gets excited about stool? We do.
Yes, poop tests are the best. But you can look at stool zonulin to get some sort of an idea of like leakiness to the gut, but a lot of people just know intuitively. You can just tell, like, you just
bloated easily.
Yeah, bloated, and like you don't feel as inflamed. And leaky gut's a hard thing to really quantify or qualify, and then it gets chased down in weird ways. And so you'll see it. I mean, if I see a GI map and the calprotectin is super high, the gut's super inflamed. But a stool zonulin gives you some indication. It's also not a perfect test. There's one test called a PEG 300 where they give you two molecules, lactulose and mannitol, and one is a big one and one is a small one. And so the big one should just not come out in your urine, but the small one should come out in your urine. And if the big one comes out in your urine, then it's going through the gut.
Leaky gut.
Yeah, but again, there's no perfect tests here. And I think sometimes with functional medicine, over-testing leads to people chasing their tail.
I know I've done that. I mean, there's no way I haven't done that. I have every test. I employ every doctor. I use everyone's advice. You
have a bedroom full of...
my bedroom's a rehab center. My living room's a rehab center, along with all the EMF reducers in the house. Like, it's definitely a thing, but I also do feel like in racing, when you'd make a change and it worked, you'd know it. You just know it right away. And I feel like with the body, if something agrees with you, you just kind of know it. And if it doesn't agree with you, you kind of know. Like, think about like times in the past where I would have had, gluten or something like that, and then or rice flour always did it to me. Like, it's like within 20 minutes, you're like, oh, I ate something. Like, that's not a lot of time. Even 10 minutes sometimes. So you kind of just know. And so I guess what I'm saying is that I haven't noticed a huge difference with anything or anybody. So I keep trying to find someone where like we just start to do something and it works. And so there's been a few things, but for the most part, that's why I keep using different people and, kind of, squeezing them for all their information and for like direction.
And that's one of the reasons your story is so valuable, because you've done so many different things. You've been to gurus, you've been to you've been to so many gurus.
I hired Ben Greenfield to do that was kind of that was actually how I started getting a lot of testing done. Was that this was between OB and the functional doctor, and I had interviewed Ben because my last boyfriend gave me Boundless, and because he was super into biohacking and all that stuff, and I was like, wow, this book's amazing. And so I asked to interview him, and at the end of it I was like, if I wanted to know, like, this is just kind of after the interview, I was like, if I want to know like what to eat, when to eat it, how to work out, when to work out, what kind of, like, if I wanted to just know what my formula was for my body, how do I know that? He's like, I'll send you all these. He's like, I'll have him send an email with all the different tests that you should have done, and then we'll review them. We can do a review. We ended up doing the review for another podcast, actually, that we filmed at the end of last year, at end of 2021. But it was like 5 or 6 different tests. I mean, one was like some DNA, one was stool, one was leaky gut test, another one was Dutch test. Maybe there was one other one, but it was a bunch of different tests. And so thankfully, had I gotten them all started, because my functional doctor would have wanted me to do quite a few of them anyway. So that's kind of what started me on like a lot of testing.
So many tests.
So many tests. Dude, there's nothing more humbling than the stool test, though, for sure.
Like the way you collect it?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you.
It's the worst.
I've done this so many times. Maybe because I'm a guy, I'm just like, it's poop in a fry basket. It's hilarious.
Yeah, the last one said that you should, it's so gross. gross. But the poop bat in the basket with the glove in the hand, it's like basically like a hot dog tray it's just so fucking demoralizing. But this other one was like, just put cellophane across the toilet. And I was like,
that's like a joke that you play on someone as a kid.
And it's like an April Fool's joke where you just
pees
cellophane and then it. Yeah. Well, no, I did it for real on purpose.
Oh my God.
So that's just the most humbling thing, but
human bodies are interesting.
It is, like it's information.
But you've pooped in the woods before, haven't you?
No.
You've never pooped in the woods?
I've never camped.
You've never camped?
No, I really want to camp though.
Okay, you need to camp.
I mean, I fancy camped. I did like barbecue world tour camping.
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds cool.
$2 million like Prevost buses at racetracks. So like I kind of camped.
That's not camping.
I was in a bus.
That's not
with like a Weber grill and like
camping.
Slide outs and like flat screens and so I didn't really camp.
Yeah, well the first time you camp for real, you'll poop in the woods and it's like not as, I mean like our ancestors.
Oh wait, I camped with Bear one night.
Oh, you did? But it's one night with Bear, you probably didn't poop.
No,
no way.
Of course not. No, shoot no.
See, I think that like this has happened to me with women that I've been camping with over the years. They have this unique ability to like not poop at certain times. When they're not comfortable, it's not pooping. But like
not happening.
Every morning, like I gotta go poop. Like you can't hold it.
Girls, it's embarrassing. It's not ladylike.
But that's
I mean, I never poop. Only if I have to have a test.
Just 3 poops in your whole life. That's it. But why is there such a stigma there?
I think it's because it's gross. It's like it's not like delicate. It's not feminine.
But we all do it.
I know the kids book. Everybody poops.
Everybody poops. Everybody poops. It's just,
I don't know. I'm weird about it too.
So this is actually maybe a good, interesting segue to like maybe a sensitive topic, but I wanted to ask you this. Like, why did you get the breast implants in the first place?
I thought you were going to ask about my poop.
No.
I got them. No, I think that's a totally valid question, and I'm glad you asked. I got them. I was 32. I had like just taken up CrossFit and I was like super fit. Like, I don't know how many people out there have done CrossFit, but like the first couple of years, like I feel you get in amazing shape.
Yeah.
And cause your body has never seen all these like intense movements and lifting and stuff and muscle and, you reshape your body. And I was like, I look great, but I don't have boobs. And I just thought, I'm only going to be this age for so long. And I don't want to get done with racing and do it and be like, well, my body's, who cares now? Like, I was thinking like I wanted to have it all. I wanted to like be fit and lean and have boobs. And so I thought, well. And I had a friend who got them and this doctor did a great job. And I was like, God, they look really good. Really good. And so then I just decided to do it. And I also felt like it made me feel like I was hoping it'd make me feel more feminine too. Like, I mean, how far do I want to go? Like, if a guy puts his hand there's not really much to do. So you're kind of like, ooh, you don't feel very feminine.
Ah, interesting.
So, I just thought it would make me look better, it'd make me feel better. And it didn't really, I mean, I think I looked better in swimsuits and in dresses for a while. Uh-huh. But I think in the end, like,
Did
as far as like, no, because I mean, only if I had clothes on, maybe a little bit. But like, the thing is, you never forget they're fake, ever. You never forget they're fake. And if somebody touches them, that's why when people get fake boobs, they're like, oh, do you want to feel them? Because they're totally not theirs.
And they don't even see it as like a...
I don't see, like, I would be like, I don't know, do you want to feel it? Feel it. It's kind of hard now. You want to feel it? Like, it felt like things instead of me.
Yeah.
So I feel sexier without them, actually, than I do with them, because it's like actually just at least me. And so it didn't really work that way. There's
just so much interesting there. So I have a sister, and growing up with a sister, I was always struck by this narrative for females is so crazy. Like, females have these cosmopolitan models that are clearly way under proteined and super skinny on, the covers of magazines. And I thought, man, it's hard. It's gotta be hard.
Really young. Some of them are really young.
It's gotta be
teenagers.
Hard to grow up as a woman. You can't admit that you poop.
Yeah.
And then you get to be Danica Patrick, racing at a professional elite level, like super fit, and thinking, I want boobs, And I think a lot of women are there, but what you said there, I never heard you say that, but that's so interesting. And as a man, of course, I'm never going to experience that. It's like you feel sexier without them.
Yeah.
You feel more feminine without them. That's important for women to hear.
Yeah. It's, so it didn't all work the way I thought. And I always knew, for the most part, that I was never going to get them redone. Meaning, like, once they expired, because they only last for like 10 years. And so I was already from the beginning like, I'm probably just going to get them out.
Wow.
And then during that 18 period when they were I was like, do I fix one of them or do I just get them both out? I don't really want to redo them both, you know? I'm like, maybe I'll just get them out. Maybe I'll just leave it. So I left it. But even I was just like, I definitely did not want to get them redone. I kind of always knew they were a one and done. Kind of like my marathon career, one and done.
But you got Boston.
Yeah, exactly. Well, totally. I mean, you know, they served a purpose for a short period of time.
I've spoken about this on my social media, and I always get a lot of blowback when I try and throw shade at like distance running, but I used to be a distance runner too.
Yeah.
So there was a time in my life where I was a vegan and I was running distance.
Right, you can speak to both of them then.
Yeah, and I was 20 to 25 pounds of muscle mass lighter. So
you were a pretty thin guy.
I'm a moderately muscular human right now, but I was an extremely under-muscled human at that point. But I was sort of addicted to the endorphin rush of running. I suspect you may understand this.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was a physician assistant working in cardiology, and I saw multiple distance runners come in with atrial fibrillation, arrhythmias. One marathon isn't going to do it to most any humans, right?
Right.
But like distance runners, I was a distance runner for a long time. It's a fucking addiction, you know? This is this, right? And I saw a lot of marathoners come in with ARVD, which is arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia.
Wow.
So you get infiltration of fatty tissue into the right ventricle of the heart with like extremely long distance running. And why are we not surprised? Yes, humans may have done some persistence hunting, but persistence hunting is like walking.
Right. Carefully, quietly, delicately, with a bow and arrow or something.
Yeah, when I was with the Hadza, like we walk and then we sprint. And then we walk and we sprint. You don't run 26 miles at 7 to 6 to 8 minutes a mile. That's not good for humans. And we know that creates all sorts of problems. I mean, I got into ultras for a while. And there were times in my ultra training where I peed blood. And I was like, that's so cool, I'm peeing blood.
I'm such a tough guy.
If I had known you at the time, I would have texted you, would have been like, that's badass.
Right, exactly.
I'm so cool, I'm peeing blood.
Could have celebrated stupidity together.
Yeah, just like, it's so crazy where my brain was.
We're just oblivious, you know, just like a lack of information.
But, so in my social media and stuff, I tell people like, hey, like, don't run, don't overrun, don't overdo it. And there's really interesting ratios of like free testosterone or cortisol that both men and women can use to tell when they're overtrained.
I had a terrible cortisol pattern when I did the Dutch test.
Because you were so
last year.
Probably everything.
So my cortisol would spike in the middle of the night because you do it when you like before dinner, before bed, in the middle of the night, if you get up in the middle of the night, first thing when you wake up, and a couple hours after that.
Right.
So it kind of tests this, like tracks your pattern. And my middle of the night draw sample was the highest. And then it went down from there. It never went up when I woke up. It just kept going down. So now my new pattern is the way it's supposed to be, but it's basically the bottom of the level. Okay. Like it's the bottom, lowest level, but it's in the right shape now. What would cause like a hormone disruption? Like what would cause a cortisol pattern disruption? This is
a check engine light in your car. This is like something is going on in the car, stress, accumulated stress. Your stress bucket is overflowing. So people chase this and they say, I have adrenal dysfunction. And it's like, well, you have too much stress and you're not recovering, which can be a million things, right? It can be inadequate nutrients. It can be poor sleep. It can be trauma. It can be, all kinds of things. Heavy metal toxicity, mold toxicity, breast implants that are causing your immune system. It can be exposure to other petrochemicals from racing. It can be exposure to all kinds of things. So it's like this indicator. I don't think that the adrenal stuff is the first thing to like go address with someone. It's like, okay, something is messed up. That person needs basically like a vacation. And a lot of people can't take that. So you have to kind of figure out like what are the things that are just overloading the stress bucket.
Yeah, and that could even be working out, right? Because that is, I know from wearing a continuous blood glucose monitor, another thing I did last year.
But those are great.
Those are great. I'm going to wear it again with the stuff I'm doing. But I know from that blood sugar goes up, spikes. I actually want to ask a question about this. So blood sugar spikes with working out for sure. also spikes of stress. Like I was in a heated conversation and I like looked at the tracking of it and I was like, holy shit, look at that spike. I didn't eat anything. Blood sugar just goes up. So all of those things cause the blood sugar to go up. And what I'm wondering is about hormetic stress, because there's a difference in stresses of blood sugar rising from food versus hormetic stress. So I don't really understand hormetic stresses well enough, but I know that they're okay to some degree.
Some people believe they're okay. It's debated. I don't think we know how much hormetic stress is too much stress for a human. We don't have any idea.
What is a hormetic stress?
So hormesis is a word that's made up, right? Like it's a word that means basically a little bit of a poison is good for you.
Okay.
If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Okay.
Until it's too much and you get overtrained, right? So this is an interesting conversation because a lot of people think that, and a lot of the arguments that are made for plants, like kale or whatever plant is the plant du jour, right? Salad, broccoli, are made as hormetic stressors. Oh, these foods contain things like isothiocyanates, like sulforaphane, which trigger oxidative stress in the human body.
Oh, I don't need that.
And that causes this transcription factor NRF2 to translocate to the nucleus and turn on a bunch of genes that turn on your antioxidant response genes. So you can do experiments that show if you give people sulforaphane, their glutathione goes up, which is one of these antioxidant response element genes, right? But it's doing that by giving you an oxidative stress. So the question is, how much of that is too much for any human? And what I've tried to call attention to with my work is the idea that a lot of these plant compounds also do other negative things that no one is really talking about, right? So sulforaphane, for instance, will cause NRF2 to turn on genes, but it also inhibits iodine absorption at the level of the thyroid.
Damn it.
So if you're trying to recover your thyroid function, you want as much thyroid hormone being produced as possible.
Right.
And when you're eating isothiocyanates in things like kale, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, all of the brassica vegetables, right? Then you're potentially affecting iodine uptake at the level of the thyroid. And there's good studies that show that things with Brussels sprouts, right? Like there are levels of other isothiocyanates other than sulforaphane, like goitrin, that can significantly inhibit iodine uptake at the thyroid. So a lot of times when people have thyroid issues, they will go to some functional medicine doc who says, whoa, lay off the broccoli. But kale and broccoli they're the top of the pantheon of freaking nutritional gods.
Right, and there's plenty of stuff out there that would say that those kind of carnivorous vegetables would also help you with, there's some, I don't know if it's some level of ketosis, or I'm trying to think, there's some other thing I've heard too, but it was like basically, you know, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli are just like really the best vegetables.
And I would say they're dangerous vegetables. Some people think they're valuable for detoxification because of like detoxification pathways. But again, it's like they're turning on a detoxification pathway because the body is seeing compounds it has to detoxify. And so we're sort of tinkering with this very complex human physiology. So I don't think everyone gets hurt from vegetables, but for people who are not well, it's like, just understand that like not all vegetables are good for all people. And that's what I try to help people understand. So your question is really well taken. Like hormesis, maybe it's a thing in humans. It seems to be, right? Because you go to the gym, you exercise, that's a stressor. And then you get stronger, right? You go in the sun, you get stronger in some ways. You get these, we know that there are some stressors.
Sure.
Yeah, there are some things that are a little bit of stress is good for us. But I don't think we understand how big our hormesis stress bucket is for a lot of people. Like you go in the sauna, you've got a sauna over there in your rehab bedroom. You go in the sauna, and the sauna is a hormetic stressor too. We know that cortisol goes up after you go in the sauna. And so it's like, well, how much can any one body take of all these things? And we don't really have a good foundational metric to be like, you're overtrained, you're over hormesis, right? You're over biohacked.
It's just too much of anything is bad.
Yeah, and
except for steak.
Except for steak and maybe like cream and.
But you know what this is making me think about? This is a conversation I've been having with various different people over the last couple of years, especially the last year and a half, of some spiritual people, and it's like you were talking about with leaky gut, you kind of know when it's off. And like for me, I kind of knew that, my hormones might be off. I kind of knew fat really did well with me. And I just kind of knew these things. And there's so much in our environment and our world that takes us out of the body and into the mind. And we're not connected, we're not hearing, we're not listening, we're overriding, we're not sensitive enough, we're not in tune and in touch. And like, I believe and have believed for a while that like all of the things that are going on are really, in the best case scenario, going to drive us back into ourself. Because whether it's something you're eating and there's so much mixed reviews about so many things out there, or whether it's who to trust in, you know, public office, or who to, you know, whatever. It's like, or what company to say, to believe what's true and what's not when they talk about what they offer or their product. It's like, we need to, since we don't really know, because the like corruption goes so deep and the information is so wide and deep, is that really it's a call to going inward and thinking and really feeling into things, to go like, because I would have known, I'd have been like, my hormones are off, go in. Fat does really well. Stop being stupid, Danica. Like, this is too much working out. Is being irrational. Like, I would have been like able to catch these things, because, you know, most things just need to be in doses. You know, I think there's some doctor quote. It's something about basically it's not the drug, it's the dose or something. The dose that
makes the poison.
Exactly. So, you know, like, too much of things can be bad. And I was listening to somebody else talk about, you know, what's the right formula for health when it comes to all kinds of different ingredients of modalities and stuff. And he's like, well, it's like a little bit of this and then a little bit of that and a little bit of that. And it's not just actually only one thing. It's like really keeping balanced. And, you know, I'm definitely guilty of going too far down the rabbit hole on things and trying too much of one thing. But
me too.
But I think we need to tune into ourselves to know, because like you knew what worked for you, right? Like once you kind of stumbled, like once you got into the rhythm that you're in now, you're like, you felt amazing. Your health issues started clearing up, like all things got better. You just knew it, you know? And I think that's what we need to start doing more of.
My road was twisty too, because I was a vegan, right? Yeah. And then I came back to paleo, and then I was carnivore, yeah. And then I had issues with carnivore, with like electrolyte stuff and hormones. Then I kind of took another turn, and now I have fruit in my diet.
Yeah.
And you know, we get hate from people all the time about fruit. I don't know why it's so good. But yeah, so now I feel like I'm in a really good place, and I agree with you so much. And I think that so many people are so distracted. We just have so much information, and our intuition is lost in this health stuff. And a lot of people don't have a baseline because their diet is so complicated. For people who are eating junk food, like, how could you possibly know what's making you
How do you know what feels good?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't even know yet.
Yeah, you have to have some sort of a baseline. I want people to question what I'm saying in my work, and I want them to get to the place you're describing where they can just say, all right, I'm gonna try meat, I'm gonna try organs, I'm gonna try fruit, try some vegetables, you know? Do whatever you want, just try these things, do it intentionally. I'll give somebody a high five if they do a vegan diet, if they're doing it intentionally. Mm-hmm. I'll also slip them like my Instagram or something, be like, find me in a few months when you don't feel so good. Yeah. But I just want people to be intentional about what they're doing with their diet. And around that intention comes a lot of intuition. Yeah. And like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. Well, this is what's working and what's not working. So I'm always evolving. Yeah. But I feel like I'm in a really good place now, but it's been like, it's been all these twists and turns. And even when I became known as like the carnivore doc, I had to say, I need fruit, I need honey. And now I get shit all the time. People are like, you're an omnivore. I'm like, yes, I am, but I'm proud of like the meat and the organs at the center of the diet. And I think that sometimes people say like, how can you call yourself carnivore MD, but eat not vegetables, but eat fruit? And it's like, well, we're not going to split hairs here. Like it's about the fact for me that like, this is where I've come from. Meat and organs are the center of my diet, but fruit is also delicious, as is maple syrup and raw cream.
Yeah, well, and also there's just like an accommodation for life. Yeah. Like right now you live in the jungle and you surf all the time and you work out. Like, I don't know, how old are you?
45.
45. So let's say when you're 75 in 30 years, are you going to need that much fruit to like maybe propel your, you know, you might not need that to accommodate your lifestyle anymore. Although we're all going to live to 120, especially like when we give a shit like this, we're totally living till 120.
I want to be surfing when I'm 75. So
you want to be surfing when I'm 75? I actually know you will.
That's the goal. So I still.
So maybe you will still need it. Okay. So when you're 105, you might not need the mango and the honey anymore. You know, maybe still keep some papaya in the picture.
I got it for you.
I'm so excited for this.
We brought it. Yes.
Totally sketchy. Got it in the country.
Yes, but it was hard to do.
But it's also about looking at your lifestyle and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it can evolve. And that's the beautiful thing about food is I feel like as we learn more, the body is there's so much mystery within the body. And as we also learn more about emotions and how those things play into things and even trauma, holding on, like there's just like, we're learning so much more about the body all the time. And then as we also get exposed to other cultures and we learn what their little tricks are and the things that they've been doing that work. I mean, I'm sure that's where so much of the Chinese medicine and adaptogens and things like that is like learning more from other countries about what they have because it's not all the same everywhere. And it's such an evolving thing, I feel like, diet.
It's a big elephant to digest. It's a big thing to understand. We're never going to understand all of it. And I love that you brought this up because I mostly talk about food, but there's so many other pieces to this equation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much else going on here.
An emotion, being angry can raise your blood sugar.
It can raise your blood sugar.
And you do that too often and then you lose insulin sensitivity. I mean, like there's a whole chain of events, right? So it's not just what you put in your mouth. It's a great start because you can control that.
Yes, so controllable. But I wonder if so many people who are driving around in cities, like all of us have been there, are just chronically low-level stress. Just chronically like, that little bit of static in the background, that's like, how do we help people get out of that too?
Well, I mean, we move out of the cities.
Yes, we do.
Get a plot of land.
Yes.
You buy a cow and a goat and, I don't know. I mean, I love that idea. I've been talking about starting the commune for years. Years and years and years. Probably 4 years I've talked about starting a commune. So if you're open to it, everybody's got to bring their own skill though. That was what I've always said from the beginning. I'm like, somebody needs to bring a skill though, because I also believe that money is just energy.
Yes.
So if we could just exchange the energy, the problem is we need a little earnest system because some people suck. And so that's why you have to bring a talent to the commune because that way you're going to be you're a participating organism within the body.
The barter system works.
Exactly. But you got to offer something.
Right.
So some people just, I believe everybody has something to offer. But what would you like to bring to the commune?
I was just thinking this, like, I don't know what I bring to the commune. Like,
you do emergency surgery?
Not really.
Scalpel. Have you ever seen the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, the 8, where he's the fly? He's the Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen Catch Me If You Can?
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
Where he pretends to be a doctor. He passes the bar in there or passes the test and he becomes a doctor and he is maybe he didn't have to pass the test. Maybe he passed the bar for real, but he just somehow got into being a doctor. But anyway, in the movie, he has to actually do surgery at one point in time and he's shaking and sweating. He's like, scalpel. And he's like, oh God, what do I do?
I could hunt. That's what I would do. I would be a hunter.
Oh, good.
I would be a hunter for the group.
You definitely can. Because if I have said so many times that if I had to go kill my own animals, fishing was hard. I felt so bad, even for the crab. If I had to do it myself, I think I would struggle to be a meat eater.
I think you could do it if you were hungry.
True.
If you got hungry enough, you would.
I don't kill as many bugs anymore, but I did kill a big spider today because here's the thing. It was in the house, and then I threw it over the fence because I was like...
You threw it over the fence with your hand?
Oh, I put it in a cup and got it... my bare hands. I took this brown recluse, and I threw it over the fence, and then I was going out to work out earlier, and I looked over there where the dogs were, and all of a sudden the spider was way up the fence and about to crawl over, and I'm like... Oh no, my dogs are not going to die for you, okay? Because I was like, I didn't know if he was poisonous or not, so I killed him.
Arizona's got some
to save my
shit.
animals.
Fair.
But I also think this brings in a good thing, and this almost ties into the very first thing that we were talking about when I interviewed for my podcast, is that about going to Africa to, what was the tribe?
The Hadza.
The Hadza, is that if I did have to kill an animal, it would be like the old days where there was honor, there was reverence, you wouldn't waste anything, you'd say a blessing, you'd be thankful. Like, it's not just going and picking up a pound of meat at the grocery store and throwing it. There's a real connection to the animal and the gratitude for this food to live. So there would probably be a far different experience around hunting if I had to do it, because I probably could do it if I had to, but I bet I would feel a lot different around the whole experience of it. And there would be almost like a ceremony.
I wish that more people hunted for this reason. It changes the way we relate to our meat. The animals that I've hunted, like when I'm eating that animal, like I've seen the animal, I've walked up to it after I've killed it and been like, and thought, that's a beautiful animal. And the first thing I feel is responsibility. Right? Like with
Not wasted.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste it.
Yeah.
And this animal will nourish me to be a good human, which means I have to be a fucking good human.
Yeah.
Like I better not be an asshole with this nourishment. It's like the anti-asshole medicine when you hunt the animal and you think about it in that way.
Interesting, yeah.
Because you're desecrating this sacrifice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in the plant-based community that don't see a lot of ethic. They think it's unethical to kill an animal. And I think that it's this beautiful reminder of the circle of life. I'm going to die one day. You're going to die one day. We will all be food for something, whether it's a fungus or a worm or a shark, hopefully not, or a crocodile or something at some point.
That's a trauma.
Yeah, that's right.
Need to be food for the fungi.
Yeah, maybe food for the fungi and the worms or whatever, or dump my body in the ocean. But it's part of life and death. And there's this great quote from a book called The Tracker, which is from Tom Brown. He grew up in the Pine Barrens and he was apprenticed to this Apache Indian. And he said, in order for something to live, something else must die. This is the way of life. And so
energy is just...
Yeah, but I think that what you and I know is that for us, if we don't eat animals, we are not our best version of ourselves. And how can we do the most work in the world? And how do you do the most good? And so I think the ethics, right? I think the ethics of eating animals can be wrapped into that. Like, I'm eating an animal, I'm responsible to be a good human, but this allows me to do the best work I can do in the world.
Yeah.
So that's where that's where I see it. And maybe a vegan could enlighten me with other ethical perspectives, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really do. We can have a reframe, because the biggest question I have in life is really like how to understand it, like what is really happening. Is this a simulation? Like what's happening here? Are we really holographic in nature? Like
Are we really having this conversation?
Are we really having this conversation?
Is this in my mind?
Exactly. Like, are you just in my mind and I'm just like bouncing off of this manifestation of an energy that I'm curious? I don't know. I've read books, I've tried. But one thing that I feel like at this point in time, not say for sure, because I think it always evolves, but at this point in time, what I feel is that our reality is really at this level that I can understand. Reality is a perception. It's kind of what it boils down to. It's perception. Two people can look at the exact same event and maybe no two people have the same experience. So it's really just a perception game. That's all we're dealing with. And so changing the mind, the framing and the perception around meat, around vegetables, around ethics, around how to take care of your body and what's important and how fast you need to be going in life, slower than 240. That kind of stuff could use a reframe so that you can start to shift your perception in a way that works for you. It's sustainable.
Yeah. There's this quote that I love. It's from Buddhism. I think it's attributed to the Buddha. It's like, it's your mind that creates the world. It's like, holy shit.
Oh, yeah. I was reading a book, and as I'm reading the book, it like epiphany happened where I was just reading along, and then it ended up coming in as a punchline. But what's funny is that sometimes I get the information just before I read it. Like, I don't know if we're just like, I'm skipping like close timelines. Like, anyway, and I was like, oh my God, the mind is the matrix. And that's really that's kind of what you just said. The mind is the matrix. This is what we have to escape.
Yeah.
That's why, Eckhart Tolle is so, famous for the power of now, like be here now. I mean, you don't get a lot done in the just power of now, but but that is really the only thing that we really have.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like the mind is the matrix. That's great. But I think there's all these other constructs that come into our minds, and we create these matrices. So much of what we do is deprogramming ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what I think about all the time. How do I help people deprogram and get out of the matrix?
We get trapped in rooms, and we ruminate, and some worse than others. I also think that there's two kinds of people. There's rumination, regret, and those kinds of things about thinking in the past. And then there's other people, and this is where I fall in, where I'm future thinking, future casting, and I get very attached to how I want the outcome to come, how I want it to be, how I want it to go. And it's harder to let go of what I want to happen, so it keeps me a little bit blind in the meantime of maybe at times where I should be exiting, that I don't see it because I'm so fixated on the result that I get stuck. And so somebody gets stuck this way, I get stuck that way. But I think people tend to fall in one or the other.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which one do you get stuck in?
I think I'm future.
Yeah.
I get stuck in the future. I think I'm always thinking, how do I want this to go? And
yeah.
But they both have benefits and downsides, right? Because dwelling on the past, maybe you learn from it. Thinking about the future, you're planning, you're preparing.
Yeah.
But it's easy to get stuck in it.
Yeah.
It's tough.
You get stuck in either one of them. And life is just all trying to bring things into balance.
I know, and get out of the matrix.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
And sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome.
We got the crystals here with us.
Oh, yeah. Before we started, you're like, go get some crystals.
Danica brought her crystals.
I grabbed this is from Machu Picchu. I just thought it was appropriate. And then, because we were talking about Machu Picchu earlier, so I was like, I'll grab that one. And then this was a lapis stone that I brought to Egypt when I went at the beginning of 2021. And they say that crystals are recorders, like they record information. So have you ever heard about like the 13 crystal skulls and stuff? Well, anyway, they think that they can, crystals do process. There's like crystal processors now and stuff.
Really?
I'm sure, I think, yeah.
Well, there's like Indiana Jones in the crystal skull.
Yeah,
what are the 13 crystal skulls, Danica?
Oh yeah, well that's a whole podcast.
That's a whole other. You gotta tell me offline.
Yeah.
We've got steaks to go eat.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing your story.
I can't wait.
Yes.
Steak, honey, papaya,
butter,
raw milk,
raw cream,
kefir.
Yes, it's gonna be amazing.
Is it kefir or kefir?
I say kefir. It's actually kefir. I looked this up because everybody says kefir.
I'm like, wait, it's kefir I should be eating. They're like, kefir? I'm like, sure.
It's kefir. Where can people find more of your stuff?
It sounds like, it's kind of like saying Target instead of Target. Kefir versus kefir.
But I like
kefir sounds cool.
Kefir sounds cooler. Kefir is like, I don't know. That's what they say.
All right, well, let's go get it.
Let's go get it. Where can people find more of your stuff?
Well, I have the podcast, Pretty Intense, Instagram. I do it all myself, so if it sucks, I'm sorry. But it's just my name, Danica Patrick. I have a couple wines, too. I know that's not in your diet, but it's definitely in mine. Somnium and Danica Rosé. One of them's Napa Valley Somnium, and then Danica Rosé is a French wine that you can get here, so you can order those both online.
The bottles are beautiful over there in the wine cellar.
Yeah.
I mean, you got this amazing wine cellar. Nobody can see it.
I had to build that.
You built that?
Well, not with my bare hands.
But it's freaking amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so lots of different things, but really ultimately the whole point of all of them foundationally is truly just about helping people wake up and question everything and connect with their environment and themselves.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.